I'm standing in one of my greenhouses, walking through my tomatoes, and it's late in the tomato season, and I'm now having some time to reflect on our crop this year, what worked, what didn't. I'm going to give you guys a breakdown of what that looks like and what I might do next going forward. That's coming up next on The Urban Farmer. Walking through the greenhouse that's in my backyard, you can see that we've topped some of our tomatoes here. And the reason for that is that we've hit the glut period, I call it. It's the time of the summer when you have a crop that everybody else has, and that is around mid-August like it is now. It happens every year, and we've decided to get rid of some of our tomatoes, actually, just like we did with our patty pan squash a couple weeks ago. The reason is that there's so much competition for it right now. We had a really good tomato season, and I'll kind of go through an overview of what that looked like, but there's so much competition right now that when you have tons of tomatoes and so does everybody else, you're competing in a saturated market, and I often say that that's a race to the bottom, and it's not a position that I like to be in. I would rather do something else to prepare for another crop going forward into the winter and utilize that time to get ahead of the game so that I can get a jump start on a fresh market that isn't so saturated. But besides from that, we had a really, really good tomato season. Besides some challenges we had with a little bit of disease, some different varieties we tried that didn't really work that well, it was pretty good. It was overall good. And the one challenge we had was that we kind of finished too early in a way, at least for the tomatoes that are the ones that we really want to sell, and that's like the cherries and saladettes. If you want to have a really long tomato season, as in the many months as possible, I'm realizing that you almost need to do two successions. And in a sense, we did do two successions. We had the first succession in the greenhouse here, and that gnome has been found, by the way, guys. In the greenhouse here, we had tomatoes in here. This is going to be a raised bed very soon. And that was good. So those tomatoes were started in January, and we were picking them by early May, even some of them mid-April. But we were selling them by about early May. And then our second succession was started in mid-February, and those were the tomatoes that went into these greenhouses. And that more or less worked. The problem with our early succession this year, the ones that were in this tunnel, is that they burned out too quick because they were in pots. And I would never grow tomatoes in pots again commercially. It was done as an experiment simply because we had nowhere else to put them at the time. We thought we were going to have that bed in there finished. We didn't, so we just kind of impromptu, okay, let's put them in pots so they have a place to go. I wouldn't do that again. That didn't work. You don't get the production. The fruit is small. They were incredibly sweet, which was kind of interesting, but the production just wasn't there. The production was nothing in comparison to what you get out of the ground in this context. So one thing I've realized is that you've got to have the two successions if you want to push the season. So you have an early crop, just like this one that started in January. We started that the first week of January. And those produce from, say, early April, or sometimes early April. In this case, it was production for early May, till we pulled those out of there, I believe, by July. And then there's a crossover. So then your next production that is started in mid-February comes online about June, and there's a crossover period, and so then these take over and then those are finished. That's definitely what I'm going to continue to do. I really liked having early tomatoes this season, and it was great for marketing. We had tomatoes for a solid 12 weeks before anybody else at the farmers market did. So it's not to say that none of those growers had tomatoes. They might have, but they might have been selling them somewhere else. But we had them at the farmers market early, and it was really good because you kind of establish a customer loyalty in a way, and then when the glut period comes on, you can still sell them. However, the one thing that we screwed up on this year is we planted too many of these tomatoes that we call ox hearts. Actually, Jean-Martin Fortier, my friend, tells me that these are called coeur de beef, which means beef heart in French. And I think that's probably what they are, actually. But anyways, we had a bunch of our cherry tomatoes burn out on us early. And not burn out, they actually didn't even make it to getting transplanted. There was something happened where they didn't get watered and they died. And so we had all these extra ox heart tomatoes, or coeur de beef, and we planted those. So we had way too many of those. Right now I'm kind of kicking myself wishing that I had more cherry tomatoes, because that seems to be a market that we can continuously sell. And that's something that we're going to do going forward. We're going to just, next year, not even going to grow any big tomatoes. We're going to strictly grow cherries. And there's two varieties that I think are the best. They're the ones that I grow. They're my favorites, and they're our customers' favorites: Sun Gold and Sweet Baby Girl. Those are our two favorite. They're so productive. I think they're both hybrids. And great taste, unbelievable production, consistent from the beginning to the end in flavor and size and texture. A lot of tomatoes, you don't get that. And if you guys haven't seen my video on my tomato varieties, check that out. So yeah, we're gonna change that. And I'm not suggesting to anybody here that you should do this or that. I'm just giving you a breakdown or an idea of what I do. And one thing I've done over the years of farming, finishing up my 7th year here, is we keep refining and refining and refining. So it's like that 80-20 thing, the Pareto principle. I've talked about this many times. Is you find out what's the 20% that's bringing you 80% of your revenue, and then you focus on that, you double down on that, you increase more value to that, and that's what it is. So we're continuing to find new things that we like and then improve them and leave other things behind. So our farm is going more and more specialized. And the reason for that, from my own context, is that our farm is very small. We're still 1/3 of an acre. We took on a little bit more land this year. We barely used it though. We took on this new plot and farmed one of our older plots we stopped using, though we are using it again. Another story, and that's actually in some of the vlogs and weekly updates if you watch them. Needless to say, we're still at about 1/3 of an acre, and so we have to specialize our farm. That is what really makes us profitable. If we were to run a CSA program on our 1/3 of an acre and we had, say, 30 to 50 CSA members, we would be making 1/5 or 1/4 of what we do on our farm now. And so that's just not within our business model. Not to say that it can't be for somebody else, because other people are motivated by different things. You might be happy to have your farm make $20,000 a year. That might be totally fine for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Though I'm not afraid to say that I am motivated to make our farm as profitable as possible. And that, of course, doesn't mean that we compromise our values as far as care for the earth and care for the people and the things that we do. But it means that we're going to specialize a little bit more and focus on the things that simply make more money. And so that's driven a lot of the decisions that we make on this farm. So with all of that, it was a really good tomato season. I think, yeah, again, going to change a few things up for next year. The densities we're planting are still working very well. We have 3 feet centered from row to row. So there's a 30-inch bed between there. I'll go back to that in a second. And our in-row density is 10 inches between each tomato. That works really well. We've tried and true that one. That's been working for 3 years. And I tightened it up. I started at 18 inches, then I went to 12, then I went to 10. I went to 8 one year. That was too dense, and then we went back to 10. So I like 10. One thing we are going to change up for next year, though, because we do so much interplanting in our early season, is we are going to widen out our paths for our tomatoes. So right now these rows are 3 feet center to center. A 30-inch bed of salad greens fits between there at the beginning, but it's a little tight. And all of us are getting older and a little bit more reluctant to do that really awkward squeeze in between the rows. So we're going to change that up next year and go 4 feet and then a 30-inch bed in between. So we've got an extra 6 inches in each walkway. I'm planning to put a new greenhouse in this place that's going to give me more space, so we can widen those up and make it a little easier for ourselves. But other than that, everything went well You know, one thing about us too in our bioregion, the Okanagan Valley, is we're in a high desert here, and we don't get the same kind of tomato pressure, whether it be pests or disease, that other growers get, especially ones on the eastern seaboard or even in more humid climates. I've been growing tomatoes in this same ground for 5 years now, and we haven't had to graft or anything yet. Having said all that, what we're going to do this year is sort of a precautionary measure, is instead of us just cutting the tomatoes at the base when we pull them out, we're actually going to pull the roots out, and then we're going to bring in a bunch of new compost and some new soil in maybe the winter, could be the spring too, but we'll see how the production of this greenhouse goes. You'll notice that these tomatoes here are topped, so the tops have been cut off them. The reason for that is the fruits on them were fairly small, and like I said at the beginning of this video, is that I'm in a saturated market right now. We had a nice little monopoly for a while, but now we're in a saturated market, so I don't need to produce more, especially of these tons of tomatoes. So topping them doesn't kill the plant, though it kind of looks like it does. What it does is it forces the plant to ripen its fruit, because now the plant goes into a defensive mechanism where it just wants to reproduce itself and ripen its seed so that it can do that. And so what we're doing is we're forcing these tomatoes to ripen so that we're not spending more time managing them, because that's the thing you got to keep in mind about tomatoes. If you're going to do them this way, the hard pruning way, is it takes work. And if the product of that work, which is the tomatoes in this case, is something that you can't sell, or you're getting a really low price for, that it's barely worth it, then why are you doing the work? And so that's why we've done this, is we've pruned them, because we no longer want to worry about pruning suckers and managing these tomatoes. We just want the ripened tomatoes, and then we'll call it a day. The other cherries and stuff like that, you know, we're going to keep managing those, because those ones are still in production. But a lot of these big ones we're going to tone back a little bit. These tomatoes here are a very different story. And the challenge with these two greenhouses is they're very small, so I don't even want to go in here. It's pretty nebulous. Fortunately, Roger and Elen are a little shorter than me, so they can manage in here a lot better than I can. But you know, again, here it was the same issue. On the other side is that the density is just becoming a bit too cumbersome. I mean, the density between the rows, same here, 3 foot center to center. And so we're gonna change that up for next year. The plan here is to also put a bigger one greenhouse that does this whole space. I gotta first check if that's cool with the neighbors, if they don't have a problem with that. That's my hope, that we can do that. And then we'll be able to space these puppies out a little bit more, and it'll be a little bit nicer to work them. If you guys have found that helpful, hit the subscribe button right now, like and share these videos with your friends, and check out my one-day workshop that I have online. I've got a discount code below, $50 off for anybody who wants to take it. It is a full day workshop, 6 hours of content, but there's also 2 bonus videos on there that are around 3 hours each. So in total, there's 12 hours of content. You get the download, or you can stream it. You get access to it forever. A lot of people have been asking, when is it? When does it roll? Well, it just rolls whenever you want it to roll. You can pause it, stop it, download it, stream it. Like I said, it's yours forever. And there's a ton of content in there. So a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, especially tomatoes in detail, are covered in this one-day workshop. So check that out. It's on my website at theurbanfarmer.co. And if you guys would like to make a donation to the show, it's much appreciated and always welcome. It allows me to take the time to make these videos, buy new camera equipment, and keep bringing content and value to you guys for free. So if the odd person can donate, it does make a hell of a difference for me making these videos. You can do that at theurbanfarmer.co/support. Okay guys, see you soon.